not physical beings having a spiritual experience. We are, in fact, spiritual beings having a physical experience. And when you try that on and really contemplate what that means, I mean, that means you're a powerful, infinite, undying being. And this is just a game that we signed up to play.
One more cold drink, one more roll, one more dance for the doors get closed. Please remember, enjoy the show. Let's get happy before we get old.
I'm joined today by a very empowering and inspiring couple. Between both of them, they authored or co-authored over 5 books. They host their own podcast called Your Infinite Health. And last but not least, they are the founders of Infinite Health Integrative Medicine Center. With a combined knowledge of over 60 years in the industry through various practices and methodologies, I'm excited to welcome Dr. Trip Goolsby and Lenae Goolsby to the podcast.
Hey,
What's happening?
thank you so much for having us on. We're so excited.
Oh, I'm excited. So for everyone listening, I randomly started chatting with Lenae around the early on, but really around kind of like the pandemic-y beginning middles. I'll say it's like early in the beginning, but middle of the beginning, if that's a place. Yep. And we enjoyed the conversation of how crazy the medical situations were going around the world and here in the US. And I knew what they did, obviously, integrative medicine and everything. And I was just nosing around, checking out the websites and stuff then. And randomly enough, which I don't think I told you guys this, but I was doing a film in Savannah. And in the film, I play a contractor that his wife ends up getting very sick with some mental issues and some health issues, and that kind of mixture of these things going on, which later turns out to be some more ghostly situations for the film. But interestingly enough, I came back after pandemic happened. I started running a contracting company while Michelle was not doing so well. So we'll go into that manifestation conversation in a little bit. But when that happened, I had already spoke with you guys on and off, and I was like, I would love for you to come chat with the Goolsbys. They have an integrative medicine here locally in New Orleans and Lake Charles, and she was like, I mean, I'm open to whatever, because at that point, misery had set in for all of us here at the West household. With love, I mean that. Right. And so I reached out and we chatted for a sec, and then she started working with you guys, which she's been doing awesome. So a huge loving thank you to both of y'all for all of that help.
Yeah, we are so relieved that she is so much better.
So what I'd love to kind of start with is, first I want to let you guys give kind of an overall perspective of what you do and how you approach that. And then I want to retroactively go back and follow the path of how you guys found the route that you work now. Because while there's plenty of integrative medicine out there, the way you guys approach it is very different than most doctors, especially, in a regular field of health.
Yeah.
So let's go for a common overview.
Yeah, sure. So basically, what we do is we help people optimize their health, meaning that we take their physiology from wherever it is in its current state and get it back to where it was. For most people, that's feeling like they're in their 20s, those high school, college years. And we know through epigenetics that we can actually get the body back to where it was in those prime years. And we do that with what we call a 4 pillars approach. So we're looking at the mind-body connection component, which I think is very underutilized and underappreciated in healthcare. But we're also looking at the nutritional component, the physical fitness component, and then the metabolic and hormonal component. And so regardless of what somebody may be coming in to see us for, because people don't take action until there's a problem, right? They're reacting to whatever malady it is. So that could be arthritis, diabetes, joint pain, stress, anxiety, depression, weight gain. Like, it doesn't really matter. Once they come in, we really get them on that first appointment to start thinking about what it is their happy end result is, because everybody's acutely aware of what it is they don't want, but few have really
Hmm.
conceptualized what they do want. And so just right out the gate, there's training on getting clarity on what that successful health image is. Go ahead.
So yeah, so it's like the mind body component comes in immediately. It's the foundation of creating the health reality that they want, and it's so important that and it's something we recognize very early on is that yeah, there's a lot of information out there about oh yeah, meditation and mind body connection is important in that, but very few have entertained a kind of a systematic approach to it, so that the uninitiated or those people who really think it's kind of a woo woo practice can get into it and understand and reap the benefits of it. And that's the biggest question is, well, what do I want? And very often the first thing out of someone's mouth when I see them, well, I don't want to be stressed anymore, I don't want this anymore, I don't want this pain anymore, I want to get rid of this and get rid of that. They know what they want to get rid of, but they don't know what they want. So it leaves them in a void that actually says, well, you don't know where you're going. And so there's no vision for that final outcome for the vast majority of people.
I
So
would
that's
say it's actually quite powerful knowing what you don't want, because if you know what you don't want, then you know how to flip that to identify what it is that you do want. But most people, they just don't, like, they haven't made that mental exercise to flip the script, so to
Hmm.
speak. So knowing what you don't want is great because it's one step closer to being able to identify what it is that you do want. You just have to actually flip the script to get
the
there.
concept though, it sounds like reversing the thing you don't want is an easy concept, but when you think about what you
Mm-mm.
want, when you're creating that successful health image, which is somebody in the future, I guess temporally it's somebody in the future, then when that person expresses themselves about who they are in that moment, when that new self expresses who they are in that moment for that person, what happens is that they actually are they they actually haven't had the problems that they're trying to get rid of for quite some time, actually. So the entire thought process has to change, so that they say, oh well, I'm running 5 miles in 35 minutes, and before they had back pain, they couldn't get off the doorstep, right? And so it's a that concept makes the exercise more difficult than one would actually think it is.
Yeah, it's funny. There's an old story about or it's a quote version of, you can have the most amazing yacht ever, humongous. You've got everything on there. It's a beautiful yacht, but unless you actually have a point of destination where you're taking it, you got a house that's stuck on the water.
A very nice house, though.
Uh-huh.
Oh, wonderful house.
Absolutely.
Don't get me wrong. But it's funny because with actors, it's the same. Is we take this script, we break down, and then we have our individual scenes, and we're really just going A to B. I don't need you to worry about the end of the script. Don't show me all that right now. Just be in this present moment, which I think connects with that, because we talk about what is the objective of the scene. What's the thing you want from now going forward? That gets you all the way through the scene, if it's something that you have clarity on. But if you don't, actors go into the actor mind, which is, I want to get my lines right. That's not human life. That's not being in the moment. That's literally trying to create the scene that you think it's supposed to be. And acting as life, I don't need you to create the scene you saw in your head that you're trying to make happen. That's not life. Life is me and you working together through these moment to moment experiences, and things are affecting us. But I have clarity on what I want. You have clarity on what you want. So we're both after something. And everyone always says, well, how do you remember so many lines? I'm like, well, because the character luckily wants the same thing that I want. So the lines just happen to be a byproduct
Right.
of actually having what I want. So I kind of look at the same with where you guys are taking this with health is if you know exactly what you want, the byproduct happens to be a healthy lifestyle that comes along with it. If you focus on the healthy lifestyle, your mind's just going to go, God, that all looks so hard. I literally told Michelle last night, we were talking about something and I was like, yeah, don't give me the whole picture. What's the first step? Leave me there. Leave me there. Let me get through my first step. Then we'll go to step 2. But when the
Yeah.
whole thing gets set out in front, it's like, I don't even want to start
Overwhelming.
that. Yeah, I don't want to start that. So I think it's really cool that you guys have, one, we'll talk about the book, but you guys have devised a way that they're starting with this end result in a joyous way, right? If you can put yourself into a joyous space and imagine how amazing your life would be if everything was perfect for you. Now let's retroactively take a look at what that human, your future human, can tell you about how to get there. If you think that human being is in amazing shape, I promise you 20 donuts a day is not on their diet.
God, 20 donuts a day. Well,
Well, you know,
Well-
5 for breakfast, 10, 15,
Stop,
20.
Dean.
Snack. Sorry, I'm getting hungry again. So
No
what
donuts.
was it? What was it? And at what point? Because if I remember correctly, actually, one, I remember Trip, you were telling me that like when you started implementing this, you realized that your patients started actually paying attention to the homework and doing things to make themselves better versus here's what you need to do and here's what you should be eating, but no one really followed that.
Nobody followed that. Yeah, it was kind of funny that, and it's very much like the physiologic response that you get when somebody can really get into that new individual, their physiology actually changes. It's like and you were there when I talked to Michelle about this. It's the thinking about your favorite drink or your favorite food or whatever. You start to salivate, and that salivation is a reflection of a physiologic response that occurs in the body at the time that you put the image there. And so that image is actually drawing your body's physiology to where that is. So it makes you feel good. And if you're thinking about that end result, that happy end result, and it's just like everything all of a sudden starts flowing with that. And you're right, the attitude, the lifetime attitude of eating the 20 donuts can't happen if you're seeing yourself fit, trim, energetic, active, doing all the things you want to do. That is not congruent with eating a donut, because 5 minutes later you're crashing and burning from the overload of glucose that's running through your system, and then the serotonin drop and the endorphin drop another half hour later. So yeah, it's and when people realize that, some of the patients don't really ever grab onto that and don't practice it, but the ones who do, you can actually see it's like an awakening. They just get so far into it, the lifestyle becomes so easy for them to attain whatever lifestyle that needs to be implemented is easy to obtain, as opposed to struggling with, I got to do this, I got to do that, he's going to break out the taser for this one. So
We'll talk about the taser in a little bit. So, well, and there's 2 things, we obviously within the acting world, we're using a lot of NLP and all these things unknowingly. I think it, in a completely other different world, this acting stuff started becoming a thing, and what they developed was completely opposite of what was going over here on the health field or the manifestation field, the spiritual field. And kind of like science and spirituality, they were literally on the opposite sides of a tree barking and no clue in their brain that they were there. So similar with acting is we have substitution, where we may I may substitute. So Lenae and I have a scene on set where she plays my wife. My substitution was, when I were preparing the scene, I had Michelle in mind as if I was just in this moment of truth with my wife. So then when I show up to set, I have the same connection that I had when my preparation that I now give to Lenae as that substitution. So the same with the health benefits is I'm putting the substitutions in place instead of maybe I have to eat steak every day versus my 20 donuts, whatever. I may place the substitution of that 20 donuts or the imagine of how good it feels when I get that donut high of now flipping the substitution for that steak high. And in the same, there's sense memory, where in a scene for an actor, you may go in your previous times that you've experienced those senses going through eating the apple. And now with that sense memory in place, you could give me anything, but in my mind, I'm having an apple because I've put all of those things in place. I've connected them to my conscious awareness in my subconscious so that while the scene's going, it directly goes to the subconscious because we're never really going to get a chance to play a monk, right? We're not playing enlightened beings. We're usually playing someone that has big problems in their lives and they're trying to fix it because that's entertaining. So we have people that are usually unconscious and just running, right? Kind of like patients. They come in, they're just running because they're getting affected. They're not controlling anything. And I feel like that's the work that you guys have dove into is putting the power back into their hands. Mm-hmm. So by going through the book and understanding that you actually have some power that you do have control of, let's not focus on the other bullshit you don't have control of. Right. We've got these list of things that we can control. Let's work on those things that you have power over. And I love how y'all word it, the CEO of your health.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of times people just think that they're the victim to genetics, they're victim to, I don't even know if they've qualified that every behavior up to that point got them to where they are.
Most of them don't, it's really amazing. They don't correlate that. They don't.
Yeah, they don't make that connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
what was that for you guys?
What
was that connection? So I know, Lenae, you came from more of a spiritual outlook that brought you to this way of thinking. Trip, you were on the complete opposite side from this medical side of everything. And then in this combination where y'all started chatting or finding your way through it, what was it that brought that symbiosis of going, holy shit, we need to be doing this, not so much of this?
I think that was really Lenae's leadership, so to speak, because she was delving much more in depth into that than I was initially.
I had to do something. I was going to end up in jail for murder.
and yeah, it was.
I'm assuming you're talking about each other.
Oh, no. I was a victim. I fell into a victim mindset and was plotting revenge. And very, dark night of the soul kind of experience. And it just was like, I can either continue down entertaining these ideas about hurting these people that hurt me, or I'm too smart for that because it wouldn't be a crime of passion. I would have thought it out and laid it out. And I would.
Her attorney saved her.
Yeah.
Good.
So don't if you're gonna, what is it? If you're gonna dig a grave, dig two, because you're going in one of them. And I just wasn't angry enough to take myself down also. And so that's kind of what propelled me to start looking into, how the universe really works and what our role is and who we really are. And so in that moment, I came across this quote that I'd heard before, but it never really clicked until that moment, which is, we're not physical beings having a spiritual experience. We are, in fact, spiritual beings having a physical experience. And when you try that on and really contemplate what that means, that means you're a powerful, infinite, undying being. And this is just a game that we signed up to play. And so when you try that on and realize that you have more control over your reality and that all this crap that's coming at you is, either designed to serve you in some way, or that you have actually created it somehow, and you start taking ownership of all the actions that led you to where you are in the moment, then you can start making better choices and better decisions, and forgiveness all of a sudden comes into play, and releasing resentment, and understanding who you are. And so as I'm going through that, um he's observing and starting to apply those same things, and then on his own volition, started taking that into applying it to the cancer patients.
Right, and it was an amazing thing because she went into that. Then I followed into the reading and into the mindset, and the amazing thing was that it actually had very potent impact on the mindset of my patients, their outcomes, their sense of well-being, their sense of serenity with their lifetime events and things like that. And it was an amazing change. And as that happened, I started putting together exercises, sequential event of exercises to with Lenae's help to try and um, guide them into the ones that didn't immediately get it, to guide them through the kind of the universal laws and these things that would help them kind of reorient and translate their challenges in a different way that was not as harmful as what they were actually doing it in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, in this moment, we're dealing with terminally ill cancer patients. This is
Right.
when we were still providing cancer care. So we would give
And
them
because originally it
handouts.
was oncology and hematology, right? That's where the
Right.
Correct.
so and if somebody wanted to follow your Lenae, your kind of trip down that path, is that Woke? Was that the book Woke you guys have out?
No, that's a great book. It's got other authors in it. I think I have a chapter in that one, but my kind of cathartic story is in 7 Sundays to Sweet Inner Serenity, and it really is a very basic kind of guide of what I did to let that guy live.
That's awesome. I'm you should have had him write the foreword to the to
He'll
the
never
book.
know. He'll never know how close he came.
So what I think is cool, and we'll jump into where you guys see this line, but within acting, within spirituality, within our health, within the spiritual understanding of how the world and the universe works through these main laws, what always rises to the top is compassion and surrender. Compassion and surrender. Love yourself, love everyone else, surrender, and trust that the universe is doing what you see and feel fit.
Mhm.
At what point do you think because this obviously affects different patients in different ways. We all come from different spiritual backgrounds. At what points or what things did you see where some patients that either had a healthy spiritual background that was able to take this on super quickly and own it, because there's a basic understanding of religion and belief that has to be kind of tied up to it. At what point did you see that helping for some, and then other ones having that battle with themselves? Because having that much power is its own battle. Like most people can't allow themselves to believe they have that. It's much easier to be in a victim mode. It's much easier for it to be someone else's fault that they did to me. That's why I can't do anything more than I am now. But if you tell them, oh, no, you chose that. You can also choose to get out. Oh, no, that sounds hard.
Well, I mean, that's the masses, right? I mean, that's everybody who doesn't want to work and wants the government to take care of them. That's a mass ideology. It's the divergent thinkers that step up and are willing to take responsibility for themselves.
And I think, and from a medical standpoint, that's the paradigm that we're inculcated into
Mm-hmm.
from day one almost, because I think the current paradigm is you go to the doctor does the evaluation, does the test, does whatever, makes a
Maybe you get to talk to
diagnosis.
them.
Maybe actually,
You could.
or
Or
you're
in
stuck with a
the surrogate,
paramedical
the
person.
yeah, the surrogate, but that then the diagnosis is made and you get a pill or you get a procedure. So it's kind of one of the two. So as the paradigm over the last 20 years, actually during my career, 20 to 30 years has evolved, it's become almost industrialized. It is industrialized to a
Yeah.
great degree, where you get the test, it's quickly done. It's and you have very quickly have a diagnosis, and you get a pill, the pill or the procedure. The vast majority of the time, it's the pill, and so and then you're given a follow up schedule, and it may or may not work. But the vast majority of the pills are covering symptoms. They're not addressing the true biology or the underpinnings of disease. And that's where over the course of my journey, I have evolved to the point where we do have a lot of biologicals out there. We do have the ability to address in very definitive ways the infrastructure and the cause of disease, and most of it's our fault. so so as we see, how we treat ourselves and what we're doing to ourselves from a nutritional and an activity standpoint, but we didn't have all this information before, and that's why the doctor was kind of put on the pedestal, and he or she had that wisdom and the practice to be able to make a decision and give a treatment, and that's the victim paradigm that existed. Now, from my perspective, the concept of the medical mastermind and being the CEO and having that group of trusted medical advisors that work together and create the plan to help the CEO get to where he or she wants to go is so much different and so empowering for the individual. And I think that's ultimately where medicine will evolve.
Yeah. Do you feel like it was enough anecdotal ideas going on where how Lenae worked her way through these things that made you go, okay, there's something we can do with this? Or knowing Trip, did Trip have to go, all right, let me go find some medical science that I can make myself believe it through the actual studies as well that support this information?
Well, and I alluded to that at the very beginning. At the very beginning, I was, got to have, there's got to be some data out there. There's got to be something. And, you fall, and I fell on a significant amount of data, most of it originating out of Harvard in the 70s, and the subsequent evolution of those. And I'm blocking on the physician and author's names, but their initial work back then, and God knows the cardiologist that I wish I could remember his name, that actually started with blood pressure, a mind body approach to blood pressure. He almost got he almost got excommunicated from Harvard because of that thought process. Because, oh no, the mind, no, we got to give this pill, we got to give our antihypertensives for these challenges. You can't possibly do this by having the mind become relaxed and not creating a stress response. So I think,
I
yeah.
feel like
So
that's kind of happened, with when it comes to this the health and pharma industry. I feel like it's almost taken on its version of the old school religious approach to stuff, where it's like, no, follow the Bible that we gave you. Don't be looking outside or going inside yourself to figure it out. We want you to go through
Well,
our way of teaching it, not the connection you found on your own.
the medical community certainly does not support independent thinking.
Well, and I feel like that
And
shows so much with you guys are a privately owned place that you guys can do what you see best for your client. Whereas if you guys were at a oh Eshtoner over here at a large medical place, you probably would only have a certain amount of things that is even on your possibilities of the next step to do, because there's probably a specific,
It's
you know,
guidelines
in the
medicine.
box.
It's guidelines medicine.
Yeah, so you also run into the conflict of, medicine is a business. That place you're referring to, that's a business. Their
Mm-hmm.
decisions are made based on what is profitable for the business. Also, then you run into insurance controlling what a patient can and cannot do with
Yeah.
respect to what they deem is appropriate in their benefits. And that, I mean, we do run into that because unfortunately we do still take some insurance. And it's a constant battle between not just the insurance and getting reimbursed from insurance companies, but also people seem to think that I have insurance and insurance should cover everything. And I talk about this all the time. Insurance was never designed to keep anybody healthy. So I would really love it if people would start thinking differently when it comes to insurance.
How much do you feel like even our healthcare at this point, now that you guys have kind of, you know, flipped perspective a bit, is it there to keep or get you healthy, or is it there to put your ailments at ease while your health continually goes downhill?
I'd like to think that people who become physicians and go into healthcare really do it from an altruistic perspective. I'd like to think that that's their goal. But when you start looking at institutionalized medicine and how physicians are handcuffed, as you're alluding to, by administration and the business of medicine and insurance and everything, um, unfortunately, yeah, it probably does run that way.
It's really interesting to me because some of the big names that were involved in the pharmaceutical launch, you know, back in the day, and this new approach to medicine and taking on more of the pharmacology and saying that all of the old ancient wisdom we had for X amount of thousands of years that clearly must have been doing something became the alternative medicine. Those are also some of the same minds that were involved with getting this idea of the secret kind of out and amongst the public as well. You know, it was some of those same big names that were tied into both, and it's always one of my battles. Is like, but you knew, but then you also. I'm just gonna stay right here because it's
Yeah.
that's a weird combination of like I'm given the, and I guess, you know, to an extent they knew it was just going to be woo woo for such a long period of time. It wouldn't really make a huge difference either way. But like you said, I feel like most people believe, and it's, you know, we take it from the acting point of view. We can't take on a character unless we have found a perspective from the place of love. Of we can play the most horrible human in the world, but if we don't think or create a belief that we are doing it for the right reason, we can't really allow ourselves to become that human and be in those moments, because we're then judging the human, thinking that they're a bad person, so I have to play them bad. Then you start acting, which is really the whole job. Stop all the bullshit acting. Let yourself be in the present moment of what these circumstances is. My overall goal is to help people find tools and processes that can increase your health and wellness, all while building the life you desire. You all know how important ingredients are to me, and that's why I want to share Organifi with you. I use a lot of their tools, and here's why. All of their products are USDA organic, certified gluten-free, glyphosate residue-free, non-GMO verified, and supported by Vitamin Angels. Everything is sourced from ethical farms and delivered in sustainable packaging. You can go to OrganifiShop.com and use code WEST20 for a whopping 20% off. Now back to the show.
Just off topic, how did directors feel about that approach?
Depends on the director. Most directors enjoy it because, you know, when I'm getting into the editing process, I've got, you know, 7 different takes of all the different camera setups that we do. You know, so maybe a 2-minute scene takes 4 or 5 hours to shoot. I shoot a wide of whatever's going on. I'm going to come in and cover a medium. I'm going to cover close-ups of each person in the scene. I'm going to get inserts of certain things or actions that I may want to allude to for the audience or the individual, the actor. So after that, I'm sitting in an editing booth with all of these different takes. If I have 6 different takes from one actor and it's all the exact same thing, yeah, it's easy to cut to them. but it gives me no freedom to mix and match the story. I can't affect the audience emotionally because all I got from the one actor was they did the exact same every time. I probably could have just taken one take. For me as a director, I'm like, no, be in the moment. If it comes out a different way, if your emotions switch to a different thing, if this becomes an angry version and the other one was like a nice version, and it gives me in the editing booth so many options for the story, because once we get down to the long version of the film, I may want to affect people in different ways. But if everybody only played it one way all the way through, I don't have any freedom to maneuver where I might see something that could be more. And the mistakes, like everything, is usually where the beauty comes in. If something fucked up in the scene that you were just doing, trust it. Go with the mess up, because I'm probably going to find some of the coolest shots or the coolest reactions because it was real. I remember in class, people loved and hated doing scenes with me, because if you weren't in the moment with me, I'm probably going to like step on your foot or do something stupid that completely takes you out of your planned scene, and you have to be present with me.
Interesting.
Dean, this is a interesting. Just thinking, is there a corollary to? I mean, for the actors who are getting into these other personas and becoming and having to go in that moment and behave maybe contrary to what their beliefs and morals and ethics are. I mean, is there like a PTSD type of thing that occurs with them over the course of a film or something? I don't know. I mean, I'm just wondering, because somebody who really gets that deep into that, if their belief has to become similar to the character, the method acting type of thing. I mean, is that
Mm-hmm.
do y'all see that? Did actors really have issues with that?
There's definitely a healthy approach and a not so healthy approach. While when I'm working with actors, I'm truly trying to get you to a point that you can just let go and be present in the moment. So during those, action to cut, you're having real feelings, whether it's a combination of what truthfully you're letting be real, or it was some substitution of other things you've experienced already that then make it be real. At the height, the highest echelon of what we're trying to do is I want to be so free and in the moment that I'm not checking in with what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, because it's me. There is absolutely nothing I can do that is wrong in this scene because I'm here. It's me. So you can't tell me I did me wrong, right? I can only be what is being in the moment. So I work with people to get to the point that they can allow all that to happen. And that's my biggest word for everything. If you can allow yourself to be in these moments, you can allow these circumstances to be yours. If you can allow yourself to go to the visualization of whatever good and or horrible things have happened in this human's past, so much to the point that it's now you telling me a memory of what you've experienced, and not you telling me what the character went through that should be showing up in the scene. I also want to work with you on the point that you are now able to go, here's some of the stuff I need to let go of and leave on set and not own up to anymore. Because we're literally energetically trying to get to a frequency that's on the same plane of whatever this human's dealing with. Some people can do action, cut, and they're good to fuck around, right? They can just play, they can do whatever they want to in between. And like, all right, ready? Yep, back to one. And they're back into drug addict or whatever the thing is. Some people have to stay very close to that state of mind throughout the day. They may go back to the trailer and, chill in there so they don't really have to interact much. But it really just depends on the human. Like I said earlier, I went and played a contractor with a sick wife. I came home, became a contractor with a sick wife. Didn't plan on it. I've played bad guys before and got out of my car to walk in the door. And I don't know if I just didn't, do the breathing, woosah it, leave it on set. But my dog barked me right back out of the house. I had to go back to the car and just.
Wow.
Get it out. And came back in. Bernie was like, hey, Dad, good to go. So, yeah, I mean, to an extent, yeah, it's why for me, I loved what you guys were doing, because the first book I started kind of working on was from that mentality of, I want people to be able to use some of these acting techniques to help them build up their belief system to support the them that they are trying to become in this world, versus, well, I've got all these crappy memories and all this stuff that's happened to me, so it's probably, I can only do so much. Not really. There's only now. At the end of the day, this moment to moment, this edge of creation is you getting that choice. You can
Right.
believe that all that stuff is what's holding you down, or you can go in your memory bank, switch up some of those stories with techniques we use, substitute a loving human being instead of the, crappy grandfather or a crappy mom or dad or whoever it was that gave you such a disbelief in yourself, and reword it to where they told you something supportive and loving. And now every time you have a memory that clicks again, it doesn't trigger that same, yeah, never thought I could do it anyway. It triggers that, I'm going to do it because they said I could. It gives you something else as a foundation to build from, versus the lack of foundation that you have and stuck in your own disbelief because that's what somebody else told me, and that's what I've been repeating for years. Very similar to what you guys do. If in their mind, well, I've always had this problem. My dad had this problem. My grandpa had this problem. We all have this problem. It's not, you can't fix it. Well, we can.
Yeah.
Can you allow it?
We've had patients like that one in particular, where the mother always treated him like he was sickly.
Oh, right.
So he grew up believing that he would always be sickly.
Yeah.
And he had 3 pages of medications he was taking when I inherited.
In a 12-point typed up font.
12-point. I mean, it was tiny. The doctor,
God.
the side effects, everything on one page. I mean, everything. He had everything.
Yeah.
I just don't know how people find a justification after going through the list of side effects where, yeah, you might have helped this little thing a little bit, but here's the laundry list of side effects that go along with it.
Well, because there's a pill for that.
Making it easy.
And he had pills for the pills.
Pills for the pills. The pills
He
for the
had
pills.
pills for the pills.
Where did you guys find that foundation of belief? What were some of the? I mean, you said you found some science background for you that gave you these things to build from. Where was it from? Spiritual wise, science side, religious, health, whatever it was. What were the things that, or the books or the teachers or the people you listened to that just started that seed?
Oh, well, for me, it was Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, were the first two, looking at Teal Swan. I also really went through because I had a warped idea of heaven and hell, of how I was raised in religion. So I really delved deep into Eben Alexander and started studying people who had NDEs, and what dead people what they experienced on the other side and came back to talk about was very different than what the preacher who had never died was saying. So I don't take afterlife advice from anybody who hasn't died anymore. So that was very helpful. Yeah. So
mentorship is important.
No matter what side of the veil you come from.
Exactly.
What did you find? What is your perspective now on heaven and hell?
There's a guy that he's coming out with a book. I can't wait to get it. But basically there is no divide. There is no, you're basically shedding the avatar, the physical being body, the physical thing suit that we see, the meat suit. You're basically shedding that, and everything's all at once, all like there is no here and then you go up into the clouds maybe, or you go down into the center of earth. Oh, speaking of funny story, I was doing a meditation, and it began with a grounding visualization. And I don't do those anymore because I feel like I'm overly grounded. But when I did this in a circle of patients in Lake Charles like a decade ago,
Wow, random
afterwards,
place to do it.
I know, right?
I didn't even think
Afterwards,
they.
I'm surprised people showed up. But anyway, afterwards, this woman, and she never showed up again. She was like, she just grounded us to hell. Like she literally thought that that's where it is. That's what it is. Um, yeah, I have a whole different view because of what I've studied and what resonates, not just what I've studied, and because I haven't died either, so I don't know. But when you look at 100 different stories and they all kind of say the same thing, there's power in that, and it resonates more with me than this idea that you're going to get judged for some silly crap when you die. So that's kind of
I
how
think
I ended up with my thought
it's
process.
that not being able to see outside yourself or seeing a different perspective than what you've subscribed to, right? You can't, for actors, they will bad actors will be doing the scene while visually watching the camera to know if they're doing it good enough.
Oh, wow. That's,
Which
How does that work?
yeah, that's making something really hard.
truth is what you guys do as regular humans. I see the world from here, from my own personal perspectives looking out. They will literally watch camera or mentally be watching themselves. So they're hyper aware of everything they're doing. So they have no choice but to act. I always thought for me with like, if we know that this energy is infinite and energy doesn't disappear, it only fluctuates back and forth to different states. Well, then if my mind and my consciousness being connected believed or had the story of, oh, well, I've done all these bad things, most likely right now on my deathbed where I'm scared as hell, I'm going to go to hell. So you've pictured those things, you've dreamed about those horrible moments. Everything in your mind is going, this is what I'm requesting. This is what
Right.
I want, right? Because
Right.
our vibration or frequency isn't going, oh no, he didn't mean that. there's there's no fluctuation there. Like, all right, let me turn the knob back. I don't think he meant to say that. That's not
Mm-hmm.
really going on. It's like manifestation. It's like it doesn't really matter if you believe it. You're kind of getting affected. You can choose to help it, or you can just choose to be completely unknown. But if your mind tells you, oh, I've been wonderful, I'm going to heaven, well, then whenever you've consistently visualized and put into your mentality and your subconscious, most likely that's what you're going to get a spark of right before you transition over either way. So I always think that those people that had the near death experience that saw heaven or hell saw a version of what they had already been picturing and putting into their perspective already, versus people that didn't necessarily have a big foundation of this is what it has to be, had a completely different experience, the light, the whatevers.
Yeah. I mean, a really good one if anybody's interested. Anita Morajani has a great healing story where she was, on a deathbed, eat up with, I think it was cancer, and she was gone into the hospital to die and did, and then came back and had no more illness. Even Alexander is a physician who was it meningitis or something,
Hmm.
and he died, and he had a very interesting experience, and now he doesn't have that illness anymore. Um, so it's just it's interesting, but I wouldn't study that stuff if you are afraid of a different perspective than what you might have been taught in your religious setting.
And I would say if you are afraid of it, read it.
Right.
Yeah, I think when I delved into looking up the resources and for Think and Live Longer, um, I think I went back all the way back to Hermes Trismegismus, and then followed the Emerald Tablet, all of that stuff, all the way through modern day religion, and with multiple references there, and found a very similar line of thinking in every single one. And it
Mm-hmm.
was I'm saying, well, and the religious part of it became, for me, I think, became much more and it seemed fairly clear to me that it was the man-made interpretation that we get from the religious practices,
Hmm.
and maybe not the true spiritual meaning of what we should be looking for.
Yeah. I always say for me, like religion is this is how I did it. These are the rules. Everyone else should do it.
Mhm.
Spiritual is I
Exactly.
found it through my way. Let's see which way works for you.
Hmm. Yeah. Receive what resonates, release what doesn't.
And I won't keep you guys for too much longer, but do you want to do let's run through maybe a quick version of just mention a quick little note on each of them of the main 7 laws that we kind of subscribe to from the health perspective, because obviously we know where we got those from the universe and the 7 laws that came from. But what are the ones that you kind of subscribe to help people with their health?
Go go through it. You
Oh,
do this every day, so
Short version. Short version.
so the short version would be, um,
3 hour conversation.
yeah. I think I think first and foremost is that image. It's the law of success, and the law of success uh, says that he can who believes he can.
she can who believes she can.
Sorry, I have a gender perspective there, and
They
they can who believe they can,
Right.
and understanding that, and understanding that the image gives the endpoint, the successful endpoint that one desires to achieve, that endpoint can be used as a metric. And that's, I think, one of the key points for at the very beginning, to say to somebody, well, you're here, your thoughts and actions and beliefs and your character and your interpretation of reality has brought you to this point in your health, and it's going to take some change, a change of those thought processes and those beliefs to achieve this new form of health. And so that is kind of the foundation of everything. And so the beliefs are an interpretation. Personal beliefs are personally held truths. They're interpretations of our emotional responses to the actions that we take based on the thoughts that we have. So the law of thinking would then be the second most important foundation. So the law of thinking tells us that the quality of the thoughts we have determine the quality of our outcomes, the quality of our destiny ultimately. And so if they're good thoughts and good quality thoughts, and they have a great foundation in 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 objective science, and that we're making our decisions with our medical mastermind, so to speak, on achieving those outcomes for our health, then we're probably going to have a really good outcome, because our interpretation of the information that we receive in response to the decisions, thoughts that we have, then basically what happens is that we're going to either get closer, further, maybe we make a lateral move to that endpoint, and then basically we can then say, well, I'm closer, I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing, so I'm going to get there. Or if I have a lateral move, I'll have a different perspective, but I'll understand that, well, I don't want to be lateral, I want to be closer. So I need to maybe change that or tweak that a little bit so I can get moving back toward my point. So that is the law of perspective, which is the third chapter. So law of perspective, empowered perspective, is where we take in all the information we possibly can, and we do that, with the help of our mentors, with the information that we can get our hands on, with a thoughtful, mindful process that we choose for ourselves, and then we get all of it together, and then we interpret the information, and we make a decision, and then we move forward to see if it gets us closer to our happy
with
endpoint.
with a shifted new perspective, hopefully, that you had
Absolutely.
to then, of course, let go and allow these new things in a good way too. Because I mean, if you know that the outcome, what you're aiming for, I find it so interesting when people tend to fight for their disbelief of, right. I'm so bad off that I want to fight to keep the identity that I have of it. yeah, that might work, but that could be good. But
Right.
no, get your butt out of here. And
Hmm. So, should I continue? That's
number 4.
number 4. So, number 4 is really a very empowering thought process. The law of supply is that if we have a desire for something, that happy endpoint, we have that desire, then basically that desire already exists. We have quantum entanglement with that outcome already. So that entanglement is sending us that information, and that creates that desire. So as soon as we get a heartfelt desire, we know it should be ours. It is ours as long as we go through the process of giving of ourselves, which is the law of receiving. Law of receiving tells us that you got to give to get. So, and that giving is giving of ourselves. It's not necessarily giving money. It's giving effort, giving thought, giving consideration, mindfulness to where we want to go and how we change and respond to the challenges in trying to achieve that outcome. And then we enhance that by trying to enhance our energy level, our own energy level, and we accelerate that process by trying to make that, as you mentioned before, keeping that energy level high. And we do that by being grateful for what we have, the small things that we have, because that gratitude is the equivalent of joy, which is a very high energy and keeps us on that high plane that makes us capable of acquiring good health, because good health is a very high energy too. And then subsequent to that, I think the most powerful laws are allowing that we don't know everything. I think allowing that we don't know what we don't know, that there is infinite knowledge out there, that there's the field of pure potentiality that contains everything that we know and everything that we don't know, and that we need to be open and allow that we can have even so much better than we can conceive of. So understand that our little ego in there, the critic in there, yeah, he knows some stuff over depending on how old you are and your wisdom level, but he doesn't know everything, and he's there trying to protect us sometimes from opening up and allowing that there's something even better than we can conceive of. And I think that's also a really important point to 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 hang on to. So forgiveness is super important, obviously, because we need to forgive ourselves more than anybody else, I think, because of our participation, and then looking at maybe a little bit of sacrifice. I think because we do have to sacrifice some of our personality traits, some of our habits, some of our beliefs, so that we can acquire those new beliefs, those new higher energy beliefs that will take us to where we really want to go.
Wow, that was
I
really
used to.
smooth.
That was really
That was
nice.
smooth.
Well done,
I'm
sir.
gonna need a copy of that recording because
You will have it.
just went
I'll,
through the. I think you went one
when
through
we go
12
through
right
kind
there.
of
Oh, nice.
the breaking of the belief part, what you mentioned sparked it. But I'll usually give someone a circle graph, and I'll say, okay, make a little portion of it. All right, I want you to write stuff I know. All right, make another little piece of it. Okay, now I want you to write stuff I don't know. Okay, all right, now the rest of it, just want you to put a little circle and an arrow so it means the whole piece is covered. Write in stuff I don't know that I don't know.
Yeah.
Huge, right? That's the biggest piece of the puzzle, to
The biggest
realize that no matter how much you know, there will always be the largest pie full of stuff that you don't even know that you don't even know it, because you wouldn't
Right.
even understand to ask the question. That's why I always
Mhm.
like Bookwise, especially for something like that you guys have. It's one of those books where when you read through it, you get a little bit of a foundation. Now go back and read it again. Second time you read it, now you actually understand some of it. Good. Read it a third time. Now on your third round, all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, I can use this. But it takes those, 1, 2, and 3 times to experience enough to keep elevating your conscious to a level that, okay, the words make sense. Now I feel them. Now the words and the feelings are coming together. But if you just kind of fly through your first round of the book and basically you read it,
Mhm.
but there was no conceptualization. You had no feeling from it. It was just words that some you may have understood and some you may have not. Nothing. It's the same with like scripts. If I give an actor a script, I say, I want you to read it 3 times at minimum, because the first time you read it, you're going to be trying to read it as character, which makes no sense because you don't know who that person is yet. The second time you read it, you're going to be reading it going, what kind of cool scenes do I have? Which makes no sense because you're not filming it. And then the third time you read it, you're going to have an understanding of this story, and you're going to find all of the little bitty details of how that human experience was actually expressed throughout it. If you're not reading at least 3, you're probably not getting all the information.
So I tell my patients when I start them, I say, as you read through it, if there's some big words in there, I put some big words in there, and some of them, and if you get to a word you don't really understand the context or whatever, I want you to look it up, because I had to.
I'll do the same as like highlight it, and then go back and look up anything you didn't get. I'll even say it's just, for us, we're taking in the conceptualization of this human being in their life. So I'm like, if there's anything that just sticks out, highlight it, go back. And now you have to justify all of those things. You have to literally create a story of how that came to you. Because if you don't have a story behind it, it's just information. It's not your memory yet. You don't own it. There's no connection. The same as I'm sure as people are going through this health journey the same way, if they can't put connect me eating this steak every day instead of the donuts, it's cool, it's fine, it's whatever. I let it go already. Not talking about it anymore. I'll leave it. It just kind of looks like a donut. If I can take the donut picture out, put the steak picture there, but every time I see the steak, I don't see, oh, this is the healthy food I have to try to eat, but I see the me that is in wonderful shape, that can get up every morning and go jog or pick up my kid or do whatever I want to without all this inflammation setting in from that donut. If they can, connect that thing to that feel good, the feeling gets them moving versus the information.
Right.
It's so important, the feeling.
That's where the vibrations come from, right?
Yeah.
Or the resonance. Thank you both for coming to hang out with me today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Heck yeah. Is there anything that you guys want to kind of cover on real fast before we let everybody run out of here?
Got a final trip?
You did that on purpose.
I did.
Yeah. Be successful. No, you can't.
Lenae, would you like to pull up a dad joke that if you guys haven't listened to their podcast yet, which, by the way, everything down below will have the website where you guys can find the podcast, the books, everything that is the Goolsbys. And normally, if you guys listen to the Infinite Health podcast, you will know that Lenae starts everyone off with a wonderful dad joke from the woman's perspective.
I know. I have a book. I got to go get my book.
Of dad jokes?
Of dad jokes. I have a calendar of dad jokes. My kids are like, Mom, those are for dads. You're not a dad. And I was like, well, I'm gonna make a mom joke book. Something.
You should.
I don't know. I feel left out. Gender bias here. Let's see. Off the top of my head, we're going into October. This is kind of a lame one, and I've used it in the podcast, so hopefully you hadn't heard it yet. Do you know what kind of cereal zombies like to eat on Saturday morning?
No.
Rice Krispies.
That one's definitely going to go in the book. I love it. Y'all are going to have like all these like high level books that people have to read 5 to 6 times, and dad joke book by moms.
It's all
Thank
about
you guys
balance.
again. Absolutely. Thank you all again for hanging out. It was always a pleasure, and I'm sure I will see you guys in the next week or so.
Yes. Thank you, Dean.
Thanks so much, Dean.
Have a good day, everyone. If you are enjoying the conversation and would like to learn more about our acting and spiritual connection, go to thedeanwest.com, and there is a course that dives a little more into the understanding of our universal connection. It then goes into a beginner acting course that is great for actors and any human that wants to learn a new way of approaching their manifestation journey. My first book, The Actor's Gift to Manifestation, is live on Amazon, and there will be a digital version on my website. And stay tuned, as The Actor Alchemist will be coming out very soon, followed by The Actor's Reconstruction of Beliefs and Empowering Perspectives.
One more call.